Welcome to SEN Insights, powered by Rubric, the podcast focused on what's shaping the post-secondary student experience sector right now. I'm Paul Clayton, CEO of SEN. In each episode, we explore the key issues, ideas, and successes across the sector, from leadership and funding to well-being, data, and impact. Through conversations with sector leaders and practitioners, SEN Insights shares practical insights you can apply to your own organisation to strengthen student experience and outcomes. So let's get into today's conversation. Measuring value shouldn't feel overwhelming, and it definitely shouldn't exhaust your team. In today's episode, we'll unpack how leaders can clearly show their impact, make smarter decisions, and strengthen their case for funding without adding pressure or complexity. You'll hear practical ways to focus on what really matters, cut wasted effort, learn from the sector, and build simple systems where meaningful data flows to you. If you want to do more with less and set your organisation up for its strongest year yet, this episode is for you. Welcome, Josh Farr, Campus Consultancy. Thank you for coming today. Brilliant to have you along. For those of you who don't know Josh, I'd be amazed if you're out there, but Josh is prevalent in our Australian unions and universities, providing services in the leadership space, in the club space, and more recently we've been working on a project with Josh, which is called S.E.R.V.E, which is around the value of the student experience and how you can quantify your return on investment to your funding body, partner, department, whatever. And so what I wanted to do today was, if that's all right with you, Josh, introduce S.E.R.V.E for those who haven't come across it, but then talk a little bit more about how people can operate during the year to make S.E.R.V.E real and make the data flow naturally, rather than it being a project that gets stood up and that just happens. So let's get into it a little bit. Firstly, welcome to 2026. Tell us a little, very quick overview about who you are, why you're here, and then we'll get into S.E.R.V.E.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure. So, a very quick overview. We have a very simple belief that's contrarian. I don't think it's wrong. I was told by the #1 graduate employer in the country yesterday on an episode of our podcast. I said, I've got this contrarian belief. Am I right? He goes, Josh, I can tell you, quote, unequivocally, this belief is right, but I still think it's contrarian. I don't think most people agree with it. And the belief is this: I believe what happens outside the classroom is more valuable than what happens inside the classroom at university. I believe that's true not only for the students' well-being, 100%. aka the time they're at uni, but also for their career, aka the reason they're going to university. I don't think what happens in the classroom doesn't matter. I worked really hard in the classroom. I'm really glad I did. I'm starting my PhD this year. I'm going back into the classroom. I love the classroom, but I think what happens outside the classroom is more valuable. And I think what happens outside the classroom is underappreciated. It's underinvested in. It's underreported on. And one of the reasons we're here today to talk about S.E.R.V.E is I think we lack some of the tools, some of the technologies, and some of the approaches to help us make the most robust, defensible case we can for just how valuable all our work is. Everything outside the classroom to help students be their best selves.
Fantastic. And listen, I'm 100% on board. You don't have to sell me on that. The student experience, it's in our name. It's transformative. It saves lives. It changes lives. And it really gives students the opportunity to set themselves apart from everyone else in the crowd, because there are so many, there are 1.5 million students in Australia alone, and forget an international market, and they're pushing to increase that. So it's just going to get harder. So you're right. What happens outside the classroom can be career and life defining. Okay, so just give us a quick overview about S.E.R.V.E, and maybe touch on some of the outcomes we've seen to date, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So we love a good acronym in higher education. Paul and I were scratching our heads over coffee, and we said, you know how we can help higher education the most? Let's bring in some more acronyms. So we created one. So S.E.R.V.E stands for the Student Engagement and Retention Value Equation. So what does that mean? Start with an E at the end. It's a set of equations. It's a set of tools and technologies based on local and international peer-reviewed studies. That's the equation bit. The student engagement and retention value equation. The student engagement says what we want to put the equations to use on, the data we want to analyze, assess, and understand is all the data around student engagement. So simply put, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you probably work in student experience, student engagement, you do things. All I'm saying is, do we measure those things and do we bring all those things together in one big dashboard or spreadsheet such that at the end of the year, when we write our annual report, we have all the nice numbers? Now, some do, some don't. Those who do often say, yeah, we do, but it's like herding cats for the last month of the year or whenever you do your reporting. So what we're looking at is to say, can you get that student engagement data more frequently? So it's pushed to you. You don't have to pull it out of your team members or squeeze it out of your team members. And then can we map the student engagement, the SE, to retention of students and then show the value of what we do in a set of equations? So student engagement, retention value equation. So let me sum all that up in a nice bow. You do a bunch of things on campus. We want to measure those things. We then use studies from all over the world to say just how valuable those things are to the university. We then run a set of equations, and the output, the simplest output, is a dollar sign with a value on just how valuable your work is as an organization. Most organizations that I speak to before we engage in this process, I say, do you get money from the university? They say yes. I say, how much? They say, well, $1 to $10 million, whatever it happens to be. I say, amazing. How much value do you give the university? And the most common answer is, well, we've actually never measured it, or we don't know. Or often they'll say something like, oh, way more value than they give us. And I agree. I agree you do. But until we can calculate that, we're just sort of trading on feelings and vibes and hoping that the uni sees the value in what we do, which is great when economic times are good. But as we saw with COVID, as we've seen in the past, as we see with governmental changes to funding, etc., if a policy comes in where all of a sudden the university is spending money differently or students are spending money differently, it's hard if we don't know how we're calculating our value. And so we developed a technology that does that, tells you just how valuable you are. And that's just the entry level. All the steps above that are, how do we compare to other student organizations? Do we have as many club members per 1,000 students as another university? How much does it cost us to get a student into volunteering? If we agree that being a volunteer is good for well-being and it's good for retention at university, how much per head are we paying to get a student into volunteering? Could we be twice as effective? Could we be 10 times as effective? And over the years working with S.E.R.V.E, we've been able to show organizations exactly how to do that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So a couple of quick questions that jump out of that for me. Why is it that so many organizations collect data, but they still struggle to explain their impact?
I think we collect data and it's observational. And most organizations, most businesses do this. So I got a lot of this thinking a couple of years ago. I went over to Vegas in the US and I went to a big investment firm. And there were 100 or so entrepreneurs there. It cost about $10,000 to go to this 3-day event. And there are about 100 entrepreneurs. Everyone ran a business between $3 and about $22 million, I think was the biggest business. So it was really cool. It was kind of like SEN, but everyone there had their own small size business, a couple of million bucks. It was amazing. So lunch, dinner conversations were incredible. And we spent the entire first day just doing data. And the whole point of this day, because they're an investment firm, they're trying to figure out who to invest in, was getting every different business's data in a line-by-line comparison, so it was apples for apples. Now think about this. Like, I run student leadership programs. One of the guy sitting on my left ran a subscription service for retirement homes, such that family members, when they put their older loved one in the home, they could keep up to date on a mobile app. The young woman on my right took home nearly $3 or $4 million in the last, I think that was about right, something like that, millions of dollars in the last year. All she does, and I say this with all due respect, all she does is buy jewelry on Temu and then put it on Etsy and flips jewelry and took home multiple millions of dollars. One guy there made $2 million in the last 12 months, take home personal income, literally scooping dog poo. He went to councils and he sold these councils all over the US, just in one country, scooping dog poo, made $2 million. Now, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, you're like, my last year, I don't know if I took home $2 million, and I do a lot more than scooping dog poo. So why do I say all of that? Because this investment firm were like, you all think you're special snowflakes. You all think your businesses are so unique that you couldn't possibly measure everything you do. And then over a full day, whether it's an old person's business, a jewelry business, or scooping dog poo or leadership programs, we got line by line all of our numbers so they could compare us one to the other. And so I think what a lot of organizations do is they measure the data, but they don't know what to do with the data. They don't know how it compares to other organizations. Sometimes it's in MS Teams or Copilot, or it's in Google Sheets, or they have a Google Empire or an Excel sheet empire, and they've got all these bits of data. It feels like they're drowning in it, but there's nothing that pulls it together that says these are the most important numbers.
Yeah.
And if we have these numbers, how much is it worth to us if we increase them? So, for
Yeah.
example, we can show that if you get another student involved in volunteering or a club or a leadership program, roughly that's worth about $500 to the university, absolute back of the envelope. So if you say, well, Josh, if we really tried, we could probably get 100 new students to sign up to our leadership program. And I'd say, great, that's worth about 50 grand. And you go, whoa. I'm like, would it cost you 50 grand if you set out tomorrow and all you did tomorrow was try to get 100 students to sign up to a leadership program? You're like, no, I probably do that. I'm like, amazing. So we get this data, but we don't know what to do with it because we don't know what the payoff is. And
Yeah.
part of that is we're not in a commercial setting where there's a direct payment for the work that's being done. So I like to talk in dollars because we're talking for organizations who speak to university, who speak to funders, who are speaking to SAF requirements and reporting. They're all talking in dollars. But all our data is in these beautiful things we do. It's in event attendances, it's number of mentors, it's in views of a video, things that we know, as you said, like change and save lives. These are beautiful things, but they're not written in dollars. So what we
No.
want to do is get the data and translate it to find those top level numbers that organizations can start going, okay, well, if we call it value. So how many students you got involved in volunteering, how many students you had in association memberships, how many students you have in leadership programs, university clubs and societies, event attendees, support services. Across those six or so areas, if we can boil down every organization's numbers into those six things, what we've now done is we can benchmark it. We can see how
Yeah.
you're performing. And then we can tie every one of those to a financial value per student, which shows you just how valuable your work is.
Fabulous. Fabulous. So where would you say the average person you're coming across who is gaining data is going wrong with that data?
It's a great question. I think the first distinction is push versus pull data. If you're a leader, if you're listening to a podcast like this, you're probably in a senior leadership role. And if you ever just want to have a chat about this, Josh at campusconsultancy.org, send me an email, jump on a call, anyone, anytime, we can talk it through. A lot of the data is being pulled or squeezed. You're squeezing data out of your team. It's coming in ad hoc at different times. It's not reported. Here's a crazy concept. What if you figured out the 5 most important numbers you wanted in your annual report and you got data on them not once a year, not once a quarter, not once a month, not once a week? What if you got updates on that data every day? What if at the end of the day you said, how many people came to an event? How many students did we get to sign up? How many members came out? What's our total revenue through our canteens and stores on campus today? Because if you're in a big business, they might be looking at revenue numbers. Like think about Amazon. You can bet your butt someone at Amazon is looking at total sales through Amazon today. They might be
100%.
looking at it per minute, per hour. So it doesn't just have to be this financial thing. The big mistake I think is we're squeezing the data and we're getting it at these ad hoc times of year versus saying maybe you don't need it every day, but maybe the 5 biggest numbers that affect your organization, maybe you need that every week. And here's the
Yeah.
fun thing about that reporting. If it becomes pull, so if it becomes push, the data's pushed to you as the leader rather than you pulling it from your team. If your team culture becomes we push data up, we celebrate our wins, then you catch the wins really early. Also, if you've got 2 or 3 weeks in a row and Josh isn't sending Paul any numbers, Paul's able to performance manage Josh and go, hey, Josh, your job is club members. And you're telling me the club membership hasn't changed in 3 weeks. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, and I say, oh, Paul, don't worry about that. O weeks in 2 weeks from now, you'll get big numbers then. And you go, well, that's great, Josh, but we've got our summer students signed up right now. Are you doing anything to engage them? And I'm like, oh, no, I wasn't. So it gives these really strategic combos. The next thing I think under that is if you know those big headline numbers that you want as a leader, then it goes down into your team. So say the head of marketing, your number one metric is whatever it is, and you've got 5 team members under you. Well, what are each of those 5 team members' top, say, 3 metrics? Think of this like objectives and key results, OKRs or something like that. If each of your team members have 1 to 3 metrics that they know they have to email you on a Friday, what gets measured gets managed. and what gets
100%.
managed improves. So if I could like carve something into marble here, it would be what you measure, you will manage, and what you manage will improve. And you manage your team members so they improve. If your team members then know the top couple of things that you care about for each of their roles, you might have 5 team members, 3 measurables each. That gives you a nice pool of 15 measurables. If you need to get those 15 measurable metrics to contribute to one big metric, say like total marketing impressions, whatever, you don't need all 15 of those things to improve. You might only get 4 or 6 of them to go up, and that might make that top level number look so, so juicy, but that only goes up if you improve the lots of the little ones. So think about this. I'll give you a quick metaphor. You want to improve your health, right? Baylor School of Medicine said that 88% of New Year's resolutions people give up on in 2 weeks. So it's when we're recording this, it's after 2 weeks in
That's right. It's done.
2026.
They're all behind us.
So it's done, right? But 88% give up. 80% of New Year's resolutions in Australia are about health. If someone says, I want to improve my health, you're like, okay, that's like the big thing at the top. And then a step down from that, you go, well, how do you measure that? You might say, well, I'm going to break that down into core components, I call them. Say it's I want to get 8 hours of sleep, that's measurable. Say I want to lose 10 kilos or gain 10 kilos. Let's just say it's a 10 kilo swing one way or another. That might be another one. And the third one might be it's a mental health thing. I want to do something mindful 30 minutes a day. So we go 8 hours of sleep, 10 kilos up or down, whatever your thing is, and 30 minutes of mindfulness. If I then say, okay, what are a couple of things we'd have to measure in your day? Let's say it was 8 hours of sleep. What are a couple of things we'd have to measure in your day that would make it more likely that you get 8 hours of sleep? We might say, well, another way to say this is, why don't you get 8 hours of sleep? You might say, well, the top 3 reasons I don't get 8 hours of sleep is I stay too late at the office, so I'm super stressed out. And then I get home and I eat dinner late, and that messes up my stomach. Okay, what else? Well, because I eat dinner late, my husband and wife, they've already gone to bed, so I'm up alone and I end up scrolling YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, and I'm on my phone 4 hours a day. Okay, that's a problem. What's the third thing? Oh, well, because I'm at the office late, I tend to have a coffee at like 4 o'clock and the caffeine keeps me awake. And I go, okay, so maybe the 3 things we could measure are, could you leave the office by 5? They go, that's impossible. Okay, what about 5:30? Okay, that's leave the office by 5:30. Time on your phone. What if Monday to Friday you set a 1 hour limit on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it happens to be, instead of 3 hours? Okay. And what if you said, I'm not going to have coffee after midday because caffeine has an 8 hour half-life? And you said, okay. Now, you might have a coffee at 2 p.m. You might break that rule. But if you leave the office at 5:30 and you don't spend any more than 1 hour on your phone, you still might get the 8 hours of sleep.
Yes.
Right? And you might get your 8 hours of sleep, and you might lose your 10 kilos, and you might not get your 30 minutes of mindfulness, but you might achieve that bigger overarching goal of feeling healthier. So the thing with when you break things down into their parts is you don't have to make every single thing perfect, but you want to figure out what are the contributing bits that lead up to the result.
Lead to the outcome. Yeah.
Yes, and then you go, how do I find the right team member, the right person, the right campaign? How do we get excited about this? Because your listeners are listening right now, Paul, going, bloody hell, this sounds like a lot of work. I want to show you it's less work. This is less work. This is Mark Manson's subtle art of not giving an F. Mark Manson's whole book was don't give an F about the non-important stuff so you can give an F about the important stuff. I'm telling you not to give an F about the work that comes up at 5:30 because you need to get home to your husband, your wife, your kids. I'm telling you not to give an F about what's on your social media feed because the human beings in your house matter more. And I'm telling you that you don't need the 4 p.m. coffee if you know you're going to go home and relax and play Legos with the family. So the way you give about the things that matter most is you actually do less of the stuff that makes you miserable. So like at a deeper spiritual human, how do we love our work level? I want to like convince people that if we can figure out what actually matters, crazy idea for 2026, we can do that and not do the stuff that doesn't. And it's so weird, Paul, because like I've been in this space for 10 years. I've run 1,500 events. I've seen 100,000 students. I love the in-person high fives, hugs, music. I love the vibe stuff. And when I went to this investment company, what I realized was what makes these big organizations so powerful is they just use this filter of cutting through to what matters, not so they can be evil capitalists, but so they can get organizations to actually do the thing that helps them help their customers.
Yep.
And it helps them not burn out as they build these massive organizations because they say no to the nonsense. And some of us hold on to the nonsense so tight that there's all these things that we have to do in our calendar. I promise you, if you look at your calendar, you'll find some things in there that both one, you don't like doing, and two, don't need doing. And if we can delete those things and find 30 minutes a week to look at our data and then email that data up to our boss and go, hey, the number one thing you pay me for, I actually moved the needle on that this week.
Mm,
And you go, okay, like that's good to
that's
know.
cool.
Imagine,
Yeah,
imagine if the boss got 6 of those emails. So
exactly.
like,
What a way to finish your week.
what a way to finish the week. What a way to celebrate. What a way to tell your board. What a way to report to the uni. What a way to look at equity groups that we want to empower. Like what a way to see opportunities because we go, wow, we're making tons of progress in this area. Our uni's really focused on first in family students. Maybe this club that's booming, the arm wrestling club at the University of Newcastle, new club
Yeah, I
booming,
saw that
right?
too. Mark loves a bit of LinkedIn, but that was one that really drew my attention.
I tagged you in it. I said you and Mark should arm wrestle at SENCon. I like it. But like, if there's a club that's booming and it's fun, it's like that might make a great news story. Like a student might choose to go to Newcastle because of arm wrestling, and a
Yeah,
student will pay that uni 100 grand, including government subsidies, over the time that they're there. And it's a crazy idea to most people that a student would choose a university because of arm wrestling, and they won't, but they'll choose to go to an open day rather than skip it because they go, oh, I've got to see what this arm wrestling club's about.
that's
And then
right.
they find out that there's actually a cool course, and then they meet a really amazing student, and then they talk to a great academic. But arm wrestling might get the student in the door. And if we're not looking for those wins, recording them and celebrating them, we miss out on all these opportunities. And that's what this is all about.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, taking this that little bit further, how can we as leaders help our teams to manage and record and report the right data, but at the same time not make them feel as though you're monitoring them and over managing and micromanaging?
Yeah. Two things. So the real practical, that's why it's got to be push, not pull. Because
Yep,
you don't have to micromanage if they're pushing it to you. That's on them. They
yep,
are responsible, they're able to respond. So that's the big mindset shift. I think there's 3 mindset shifts. First mindset shift is it's got to be push, not pull. As a high performer, so your team is full of high performers. As a high performer, you tell me about the good things you're doing. I don't
yep.
chase you for it. I'll chase a child for something. I chase my 4-year-old to clean his teeth. He's not a high performer yet. God love him, right? He's
Absolutely.
he's completely extrinsically motivated, not intrinsically motivated, because he's 4, right?
Yeah,
I don't want to be chasing a team member. I want a high performer who's going to push and celebrate and create and tell me those things. So the first mindset shift is it's push data. It's being pushed to the leader. The leader's
yep.
not pulling it from you. Second mindset shift is this sounds like more work. I'm trying to tell you it's less work. The way it's less work is you open your calendar right now, you pause this podcast, you find 3 30-minute slots in your week, which are nonsense meetings that you don't need to be in. You send a respectful, I'm not coming. And out of those 3 30-minute meetings, you spend one of those 30-minute meetings obsessing about data and that extra hour looking at the clouds. Like if I can show you that there's an hour and a half of nonsense in your calendar, and I only need 30 minutes of you to be on top of your data, like you're a top 1% data if you're spending 30 minutes on it a week, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's less work, not more. So firstly, it's push, not pull. Second, it's less, not more. And third, it's fun. It's not a chore. It's not more work. So most people get data, and data sounds like the most boring thing in the world. You're
Oh,
like,
it
are you
really does,
serious?
doesn't it?
I work with students. I work with like humans. We're in the business of changing lives. I'm like, I get that. The whole reason we like created this was because for 10 years I was running programs and students were filling in testimonial forms telling me it was the best thing that changed their lives. One student wrote in COVID, I don't think I've ever talked about this, so it's good to talk about this on the SEN podcast. A student once wrote to me from a psychiatric ward in a mental illness like hospital during COVID, saying he was in there for self-harm and he found our series of workshops online. And it's the thing that not only got him through that experience, he wrote me this handwritten note, I've still got it, but also he then enrolled in a psychology degree and he was now
Oh, wow.
studying to be a psychologist. Like all those beautiful, heartwarming things.
Yeah, that's transformative, isn't it?
It's transformative, but here's the problem. The next year, the uni would turn around and go, oh, sorry, Josh, we don't have funding for that leadership program. I'm like, this literally saved the lives of some of your students. And they were like, well, can't justify it. And so I had to turn around and look at this, and our conversation was like, how do you put a value on this? How do you
Yeah.
make it so good that if we believe in what we do, I think we have an ethical obligation to advocate for the value of it. Because if we don't advocate for the value of the student experience, then it's at risk of being looked as a nice to have, and it's at risk of being cancelled. And so for us, for me, like I'm driven by like joy and fun and passion, and I'm driven by purpose. So I need to see data as the way I get to have fun and do the thing I love, and I get to fulfill that purpose. So for the team, how do you get the team bought in? It's got to be push, not pull. It's got to be less work, not more, and we've got to make it fun. By doing less, not more, you get to do more of the things you actually enjoy. And if the data is a way to celebrate and capture the great work you're doing, it's not the work. It's like everyone, I'll give you a great metaphor. Everyone knows this if you're a runner or you love to walk or exercise or anything like that. The second you put on an Apple Watch or a Whoop or a Fitbit, you start competing with yourself. Everybody loves the data when you get to the end of a run or a walk and it says personal best, calories burnt, longest distance. And the reason all those health devices are gamified that way is they're trying to stack positive emotion on top of something that's bloody hot and painful and sweaty and
Yes.
gross. Going for a run, I love running. Going for a run sucks, right? I love it. Why? Because at the end, you get those numbers, that insight, that progress. And so the data is not the work. The data is how you capture and celebrate the work. And over the long term, the data is how we ensure that we keep getting funded to do the work we love. So the team's got to get bought in. And that's why this year with S.E.R.V.E, all the S.E.R.V.E that we've agreed with clients to deliver this year, all comes with an in-person training for the staff. So I can basically take the staff to church on this and deliver
Brilliant.
about a half-day training. At the start, I put it as an optional extra. Now I'm like, nah, the team's got to understand it. They've got to get it. They've got to look at this and go, oh, this is going to help us have a better time, a better year, set ourselves up for the future. And I think if you're listening to this right now, and if you believe that, if you believe what you do matters, then data is just a piece of the puzzle that helps you do that work. It's not the work,
Yeah.
um, but it's a core part to help you do the work, if that kind of makes sense, Paul.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So going circling back to S.E.R.V.E then, what what are high performing organizations doing differently when it comes to measuring impact?
Yeah, it's a great one. So the first thing that answers almost somewhat in the question there, like they're measuring their impact there,
Yeah.
which is great. So the first one is they have the mechanisms to capture the data. So if you are running an event, if you are doing any sort of program or activity, that part of delivering that is actually capturing the data. When we train student organizations, clubs, and societies on event management, we teach this impact process. And one of the steps in our impact model, it's literally called impact, but with a K, is at the end of the event, the A stands to analyze. So we're analyzing the event both through the lens of the participants and through the team who are delivering it.
Yeah.
So at the end of every event, we're figuring out, we're getting students to do a survey, we're getting them to fill in a feedback form, we're understanding the numbers. So the first thing a high performing organization does is everything they do, they have some sort of record that it was done. So you
Yes.
know that old idea of like, if we take a photo, if we didn't take a photo, did it really happen kind of
That's right. If
thing.
it's not on Strava, it didn't happen.
Yeah, if it's not Strava, it didn't happen. So I think in the same way, it's like if we're doing things, I'm asking people to document them. The two ways you document them is you take photos, videos, audio, but then you write them down. You say, okay, well, we had 68 students here. Now, the next level up into the data integrity is ideally best practice. That is a unique student identifier for every event. So I was at I can't remember if it was Griffith or Monash University. I think it was Monash University, MSA's all their club training. And they had a little RFID tag. So whenever you show up at a training, you tap in.
Yep.
Very simple, not fancy technology. Students already have an ID card. They tap into
That's
their
right.
ID card because it's SAF funded and it's reportable. So that way, not only we know exactly how many students came, but we also know which students came.
Yes.
So and that's really helpful for the S.E.R.V.E stuff later. So number one is they're capturing the data. Number two, what they're looking at the data is they're then analyzing it in a way that they're trying to gain insight. So it's great to say, okay, well, we had 600 students complete the club leadership training this year. It's like awesome. Compared to what? If it was 800 students last year, something's gone horribly wrong. If it was only 200 students last year, you've tripled it and something's going really well. So recording that data and then setting it up in a way that you can compare it to something else. You can compare it to a previous year, or you can compare it to other universities. The highest performers in any field, think athletics, we're using sport a little bit today. They're not only looking at their performance against themselves, how fast did I run last week? How much weight did I carry last week? They're also going, well, how does that compare to everybody else in my field? And that's why we see in, say, athletics, every year, think about this, Paul, every 4 years we watch the Olympics. And every Olympics, there are new world records set. And you think, how's that possible? At the last one, everyone tried their hardest,
That's
and
right.
this is as good as we were. And now at this one, everyone's trying their hardest, and we're better. It's because like the highest performers push each other to be better. And in the same way with data, we not only look at our past and look at other people, we start to look internally. We start to look at the teams. One of your team members listening, if you're listening right now and you have a team, one of your team members has the best data and the best reporting. I like to refer to it as raising the floor. Find who that team member is, have them teach all the other team members how they do it. And if you just get all your team as good as the best person in your team, it'll elevate massively.
Yes.
Um, so best teams not only get the data, they start to analyze it, they look around, and then the third step is they start to use it in the future. So they start to go, okay, how can the data inform what we do moving forward? Do we have, this is what Mark and Unza did massively over the last couple of years. We were behind nationally in a couple of categories. Mark talked about that publicly at SENCon 2025. He said we were behind in a couple of categories, and the meaning he gave that was this means we have a massive opportunity to grow. So
Yes.
if you find
That's
out that
right.
your
Glass half
data
full.
glass half full, and it's sort of like you say, it's not only the glass is half full and we should appreciate it, it's that the top half of the glass is empty, but that could be full too.
Yeah.
We could go from a half full glass to a full glass. We've got
Yeah.
room
Yeah.
to go. Whereas some organizations, you can think at SENCon in the SEN community about some of the organizations in the country who win a large number of awards at SENCon. It's kind of like, where do you go from there? If you're winning a lot of awards, it's like, well, we're going to go from winning 12 awards to 14 awards. Like, that's good. And I'm sure those big orgs will. But if you're an organization who won zero, I heard one great, I can't remember who it was, Paul, but at SenCon, I was talking to someone and they said, I asked them, like, did you win any awards tonight? And they said, because we sponsored the awards and we were grateful to and hope to again. And they said, no, no, we didn't win any awards. But they said it like that in a really happy tone. And I was like, I gave them this look and they could tell that I was confused. And they said, yeah, but we had 3 nominations. And I said, oh, well, that's incredible. Well done. And they said, yeah, yeah. Last year we only had 1 nomination. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's
See, that was the
awesome.
journey.
That's the journey. And that's the bit
Yes.
of, if you find an area where you're not crushing it, an area that you may be behind or that has room for improvement, and then you go, huh, could this be an area we focus on this year? Could this be something that I always get orgs to write their annual report at the start of the year? Like, write the report you want to write at the end of the year, but just write it at the start of the year in one page, do a nice little team
Yeah. Yeah.
building activity. Where do you want to be? What do you say you want to have done? Write your SENCon award submission right now. If you're launching something, write it right now.
Oh, wouldn't
Just
that
like,
be
don't,
fantastic?
yeah, don't submit it right now, but write the submission that you want to submit at the end of the year. Um, because that's the thing we work towards. So the best organizations, they record the data, they analyze the data, they look at it, they obsess over it, they have fun with it, they're playful with it, but then they look into the future and they say, where could this data go? A lot of graphs end at the end of the graph. And the best organizations then take that graph and go, scenario plan. If we keep going, here's where we're at. If things go worse, here's where we're at. If things go better, here's where we're at. And then we take that motivated sense or that situation and say, how do we then give that to our team in a way that they believe, that they buy into? Because that's the reality of the team too. The team is paid what they're paid. And if you say, hey, let's double our club members this year, they go, that sounds like twice the work.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
that, the art of it is saying, well, you're right. If you only can look 12 months in the future, your contract is your contract. Why should you perform at a higher level? But that's not what a high performer does. That's what someone who's
No.
quiet quitting. A quiet quitter does that. The quiet quitter goes, oh, well, I was going to quit in a year anyway. Oh, I'm not going to work that hard. You've got someone who wants to be in the industry forever, who wants to win one of those big lifetime achievement awards at SENCon. Like, I want to know at the next SENCon, every single person who watches the lifetime achievement awards, I want to know the people in the audience who genuinely believe in their heart, like, I want that to be me one day. Because those are
Oh,
the people, those are the people who you
they're the
go, all
winners.
right, they're the winners.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not for everyone. Maybe people are trying industries. I get it. But those are the people who I think you say, hey, here's the data on where you're at. Here's what it could look like in 1, 3, 5 years. Here's what it would take. Are you up for that? And I think those are the people who go, yeah, I'm up for that. I'm up for that ride.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, well, let's close up then, and I'll ask you a quick couple of questions. If a leader could do one thing differently after this episode, what should it be?
Leader could do one thing differently after this episode. What would it be? I would ask every team member to send one number at the end of every week to quantify the best thing that they feel like they achieved all week. Or if you lead leaders, have all your leaders say the best thing that their team achieved every week. So have your inbox on Friday, put it in a calendar hold. So say like 10 to 10:30, it's celebration through data time. 10 to
Yep,
10:30, your entire team is invited. It's not a bloody meeting. It's 30 minutes to sit down and write an email, CC everybody in, send it in, and just celebrate the great things you're doing, but make a culture of celebrating not just through those personal one-to-one stories, but celebrate through data. Hey, we had this number go up. We improved this by this much this week. And maybe for fun, you could throw in like a PS. Someone might throw in a personal thing. You might go, hey, on a personal note, I increased my holiday savings balance by 8% this last month,
yes,
or
yeah,
you could get playful with it, health or fun. But I would say make data a weekly thing that you celebrate, that's part of your culture, make it fun, and then just throw out a ton of thank yous, celebrate it, put it up in lights.
fantastic. That's awesome. And finally, just on a personal note, what's one big target, one goal for you for this year?
Yeah, a big target for me this year is I'm starting my PhD. So I've got a PhD approved through VU. I haven't talked about it on the podcast, so nice to do it here. 100% scholarship put forward by the government and VU combined, which I'm very grateful for. So thank you,
That's
taxpayers and
awesome.
VU, for that. To look at the long-term, longitudinal impacts of extracurricular work and what they do trifold on academics, student success and retention, and also career outcomes. So we're basically going, I've been asking student orgs the last few years to look at their data and measure it and report on it. So the most formal way I can do that in academia is to work
That's
towards
right.
being Dr. Josh
That's right.
and to do
They
some
do
really.
love their product.
They do love their product, and I'm a fan of it, mate. I think
Yep,
I believe education changes lives. We've seen it. We've just moved back to Melbourne, so we're building a house, which is a huge one. But we're really putting some roots down in Victoria. It's the education state on the license plate. Everyone asked us why we changed the Sunshine State for the education state, but it's where a lot of our work is. Obviously, we work nationally, but a lot's down here. We're putting roots in. We're embedding ourselves in the sector. The university sector is where
yep,
we want to be.
yep.
So we really want to put a stake in the ground and go, this is us. We're here for the long haul. We're up for we want to be running for the Lifetime Achievement Awards in a couple of decades. But also, I just want to do a couple of decades worth of work. So when we really made that call, I was like, well, I'm not going to do a PhD later when I'm retired because I have no intention to retire. I want to do this for decades to come. I will be 65 years old on campus talking to first year club leaders about how being club president is the best thing. That is like a life goal. And I don't
I
want to be
love
the
that.
cool kid. I'm not trying to be cool. I'm not trying to like be their best friend. I just want to be that person who's like convincing young people that doing the most they can for other people is the best thing they can do for themselves. And the more I go, the more passionate I get about that message. And so doing some formal research will hopefully just tick that box
Yeah,
of the higher ups in the unis going, oh, this guy means
that's
business.
right. Adds
Uh,
credibility to what we work together on and what you guys at the Campus Consultancy deliver. It's fabulous.
that's it. And then it's all partnerships from there. It's like we love Paul, like obviously with SEN and with SENCon, with all the partners. I think it's the nice thing about thinking about a whole career now and a mission is like, what are the relationships that 5, 10, 20 years we want to see cook? And when I go to SenCon and I see some of the old hats who've been working together for 10 or 15 years, I'm like so envious of the in jokes and the knowledge they have and the
That's
swings and
right. The
roundabouts they've
connection
seen. Yeah.
genuine, yeah,
Like
shared experience is fantastic, isn't it?
just I think like youth gets so much admiration, but I don't think wisdom gets enough. And I think the wisdom of people who've done something for 10, 20, or 30 years and not lost steam in the process, not become cynical. I just think that's so cool. I think it's so cool to still want to do the thing you're doing 30 years later. So yeah, I think this is just a next step in that process, but we're more excited this year than we ever have been.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thanks very much for your time today, Josh. I feel blessed and privileged to work alongside you. It was a chance coffee after an introduction from Jess that put us together, and every time we get
Thank you,
together, it's
Jess.
just the energy in the room is fantastic. So I'm hugely grateful. And again, we'll speak again soon because we're always working together on bits and pieces. So thanks again for your time today, Josh. You take care, and as always, reach out if you need anything.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, fella.